This is Critical Nonsense, our high-lowbrow show about culture, science, and tech. This week, Joey asks me about medical serendipities.
Woo!
I'm going to Wichita. This is what a Joey sounds like. And this is what an executive producer in White Stripe, Jess Vander, sounds like.
Hi, this is Jess.
Jessica,
Jessica.
have you heard of the Ozempis?
Like the zoomies for people on Ozempic?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just, in our tendies fashion, just making Ozempic sound cutesy. There's been a lot of talk recently about, go ahead. You got
Upon further rumination, it should be Zempies.
Zempies. Got it. No O.
Right.
Oh, Zempies.
Zempies.
The Zemps. There's been a lot of talk about it recently, and it's been on my mind because a friend of mine shared that they were taking it like this week with me. I was like, great, good, it's wonderful. How's it going? They're like, awesome, like amazing. And a lot of the conversation is like, this is a miracle drug. And what was, originally developed as a sort of weight loss drug is now showing all of these other sort of second order positive impacts, like in the case of Ozempic in particular, being a highly effective treatment seemingly for addiction, like of all sorts, like just like root addiction, not like, like methadone. How do you get off of opioid addiction or, whatever? It's like, what are you addicted to? Something? Guess what? You can take Ozempic and all of a sudden you're like not addicted to that thing. And so it has this miracle nature. And then I saw just like happenstance this week, someone posting about how Cialis, which was developed to treat ED after the wake of Viagra, which was also a drug that was designed for treating like blood pressure and heart disease, was like, oh wait, it solves this other problem, erectile dysfunction. Great, we're going to sell it for that instead of, it's better at that. Cialis, apparently developed as a drug for erectile dysfunction instead of heart disease, still also has heart positive effects, but also has all these other effects that I had no idea that like studies have been done, like increase in muscle gain, like in some instances as much as like doubling muscle gain from taking a drug that was designed for erectile dysfunction, as well as like reducing insulin dependency and like all these other like second order effects. And I was thinking about it and I was just like, in some ways it is this like magical serendipity of you develop a thing and it just happens to be like better at other things you weren't intending. But it made me wonder if there, like, how many things are we surrounded by that have use cases that we're not thinking about?
What an interesting concept. This idea that, especially as we are discovering something or on the path to thinking we are observing one thing, we only see a part of it. And then it is revealed that actually there is a bigger thing, right? Like the idea that in the case of Ozempic, it was like, okay, look, it works for anti-food cravings. And then it's like, wait, no, it's anti-wanting in general. Now it actually has like there's a bigger scope that it can affect than the thing that we observed in the first place, which is interesting, as especially in medical use cases where it's like, yeah, sure. What about also other nice to haves? Like maybe it's really convenient when you have something that covers even more ground than you ever thought it could. There's probably also the case of, I intended or envisioned that there would be, XYZ original use case that I was looking for. And then it's something totally different, but also useful. So that, I guess, goes to show you just like the joy and also the trials of being in any kind of research field.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because pharmaceuticals like exist within such complex systems that like you anticipate and are studying for second order effects when you're testing the efficacy of a pharmaceutical, right? So you're like trying to like look for what other impacts it can have to make sure it's not having negative, like you're looking to prevent negative second order effects. But like in some instances you're landing, it's like we were looking for neurotoxicity, but what we found was like everything was turned into magic. Like, it's like but it made me, there are phrases in I hear it more in sort of like tech-oriented companies or orbits within companies, where like this idea of a solution without a problem, right? It like I think the first time that I'd encountered it, we were doing work with ATAP, Google's Advanced Technologies and Products group, where they had like lots of folks from like DARPA and these sort of like savant type genius people, where there's like, here's some money, you seem interested in this thing, go see if you can develop like a crazy cool thing. And it was sort of a skunk lab where you bring in great people and you're like, what can you come up with? And some interesting things came out of it, but someone was like, we're basically doing come up with a solution without a problem and then see if we can find a problem that it helps. And this idea of like, how much should we be pursuing? And in some ways, like the innovation work that we do sometimes does that, right? Like here are a set of enablers. We have like 6 sensors that like study these things, and we're using it in this product that, drives you to work. But it's like, could we be doing other things with those sensors that would like have a positive impact on like a driver's life in this instance? Or, we've developed these other, like, I mean, frankly, like blockchain technology is sort of like an interesting example of this, where the people who talk about blockchain are like, this is like a really cool technology that we've developed to be able to sort of monitor long term in a sort of consistent and accessible way, like the things that are happening on this blockchain, right? And everyone's like, blockchain hasn't found its use case. Everyone's like trading cryptos and doing coin launches and whatever, but they're like, yeah, what do we do with this? Like we like reinvented money with this technology that we came up with. And, the people who glom onto it are like, well, down with fiat currency or whatever. And it's like, sure, like I guess it does that, but it would probably be more interesting in like a medical records system or something like that, but that's like not where it's getting used. And so I don't know, it's just maybe I'm also just interested in it because I wind up MacGyvering the most like stupid solutions to problems in my home. I'm like, well, I saved this air conditioner liner that I can use to resolve this other issue.
And maybe we can use it for this thing. Yeah, and thus one becomes a collector / hoarder of goods like myself. Like, this paper, I will reuse this for something else for sure. Yeah, it's funny. This reminds me of, it's like one could accidentally infer that solution without a problem just means like having a thing and taking many shots in the dark of like, there's square peg. Where does this fit into? Like this?
I can't find a square.
In the round hole, maybe? I don't know. Like in the triangle hole? Remember that meme?
Yes. And the triangle block goes in the
square hole. Exactly. But probably a better analogy is what in our household is called pulling a Ryan, where you observe that there might be some like corner of a something on a screen, on a microwave, on a air filter, that light, whatever. And if you start to peel at it, suddenly you realize that there is this like thin plastic packaging film that has been affixed to it, and then underneath it you reveal that it has been covering the whole thing the whole time. There are several people for whom Ryan has gone into their home and told them like, hey, you know, there's a plastic film on your microwave. And they're like, no, that's just my microwave falling apart, like blistering. And he's like, no. And then pulls back this thing and they're like, oh my God, I had
You
no
gave me a
idea.
new microwave?
Yeah, what? And it's because you have to, like, instead of just taking a shot in the dark, it's just looking at that one thing and being like, that could be the thing that I assume that it is. Or what if I just scratch at it just a little bit, or in this case, quite literally, and see if there's anything more behind it, and then maybe there isn't. But really, I mean, you said this in an unrelated conversation, but I think it puts it nicely, this idea of like compulsive curiosity of like, let's just I don't know, let's just try it. Let's just see. Does the round peg go in the square hole maybe?
Yeah. It's like, in some ways, this idea of invention, which I would, I can't say that I've invented or anything, or like I'm not. Maybe I have like some concept or something, it not being used widely, let's just say. But it feels like it is an attempt to build some really elaborate Rube Goldberg machine that functions. And then once you find a Rube Goldberg machine that functions, you're like, can I reduce the Rubes, or is it the Goldbergs? Like it took 71 steps to accomplish this thing. And like once you're like, the Rube Goldberg works. Like, okay, can I do it in 65? Can I do it in 42? Can I do, like, you sort of like walk back, but like finding the solution to a problem often, like even in mathematics, like where someone is like trying to get to a proof, like that the successive attempts are like reducing the proof. Can you get like the proof to like 3 lines or something like that,
It all comes back to numeracy. It also makes me wonder if we have a thing as people where as soon as we see a good thing, we expect and assume that it will be like more of good is good. Mm-hmm. And we keep like, once you see that, you like keep pushing it until then you achieve such extremes where now you've reached the point where more of good is bad. and then you have to pull back, reel it in. But it is an interesting idea that we like to once we, especially if it takes a ton of investment, like anything in medicine, if it's that good, it would be really awesome if we could just find more good in it, because that would be great for us.
Do you think on a fundamental level that there are like elaborators and efficienters? Like the inventing part in some ways feels so different. It is maybe it's like the theoretical versus applied physics type of thing. It's like, cool, you found this idea that like seems like it might work, but like someone's got to build it now. Like you have like that like engineer who is like, or even business as like a function, like what business provides like through markets is like, can you do it more efficiently? Can you reduce costs? Can you like that it like as an organ or a system within an organism, like that's its job, is like do this thing at like lower and lower cost of energy, resources, whatever. But like you need someone that's going in the opposite direction, being like, no, we should spend a ton of resources to see if we can figure, like the first solar panels were so expensive. Like like $100,000 for a panel or something, I think is what I saw in like the early wave of like the 80s when we were getting, children's television being like, did you know that like solar panels exist? And they like show you a car that could go like 6 miles an hour on a solar panel. And it's like, well, we didn't tell you is this costs more than your parents' home. Like, like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, maybe. It also probably very closely ties to optimism and pessimism. Like the idea that there's always a fear or a risk, like even as you were describing before, where you're testing for negative side effects of some of these medicines, but through that, maybe one of those optimistic elaborators is like, oh, but what if? Hey, look here though, because it seems like maybe based on the evidence from this study, now we can use it for many more things. And then you've got the balance of some pessimistic efficienter being like, okay, but how are we gonna do that? And also, let's not accidentally harm people in the process. It seems like a good balance. And maybe, I don't know what some of the science medical people listening would say, if there is like a greater balance in the scientific community of one type or the other. Like, who is the driver? You probably need more of the optimistic elaborators to like, push the envelope. Innovate.
Yeah, innovate.
Miracle.
Do you wanna hit us with a wrap up invention corner?
Yeah. Okay. Keep a lookout for solutions. They might be bigger than you think.
Pew pew. Wow. I don't want to make sounds because it was so good.
And that's the end of that. Thank you, bye.
Critical Nonsense is a Sylvain production.
Brought to you by Shots in the Dark.
We'd like to thank our executive producer and Lil Jon, Jess Vander.
Surely, we'd also like to thank Good Thing and sound engineer Alex Contel.
We'd like to thank our programming coordinator and H-Town rep, Les Jacobs.
And thank you to our elaborators and efficienters, the production crew of Sarah, Gilbert, Nora Mestridge, Christy Jensen, and Amy Waters.
And as always, thanks, Ellen. Special thanks to all those people coming up with ED drugs that are solving so many other problems.
I mean, that's great. That's wonderful. Special thanks to, enjoying a surprise now and then. It's just really, a surprise can be really great.
Yeah. Special thanks to the Danes for developing this GLP-1 scenario that everyone is, going to benefit from, apparently, if not personally, by taking them through reduction in healthcare costs, theoretically, in a long-term way. So, thanks. Thanks, Denmark.
Oh, thanks, Denmark.
Novo Nordisk, if that's your real name.
And thanks to the great experiment that is all of us just, trying to take care of each other or whatever.
Yeah, the arc of history bends towards justice. That's all.
We went off the rails again.
Well, love you, mean it. Bye.
Okay, see you, bye.